Well, how you do, buckaroos, and how the heck are you? If you can read the bottle there, I did pick up the Bourbon County Stout. Now, for those of you that might want to try to label me a hypocrite, well, here's I won't go into all of my issues about AB InBev and this beer at this time, but I've said I'm not going to stand in line for it. I'm not going to pay too much. Well, I didn't stand in line. On my work route, I found 10 bottles sitting on a counter. I picked up 2. They were $11.99 each. One was for a friend. The other thing, well, I guess that was it. I mean, I didn't stand in line for it, and I paid $11.99 for it. I did find it at 2 other stores for $14.99 and $15.99. For me, I'm not paying $15 or $16 for this 16-ounce bottle. That's me. But anyway, when I did another AB InBev product, and they are solely owned by AB InBev, what I did to try to make it fair was be clinical about it. So I've got my BJCP score sheet. So I'm surprised they don't have appearance first. I'm going to go backwards and do appearance first because that makes the most sense to me. They give you up to 3. Again, my issue with grading is there aren't any standard deductions and nobody grades the same way, which is why I'm not just pulling numbers out of my keister. So I'm using this BJCP score sheet. So anyway, the head I poured about this much in a tasting glass because if you were to judge this product, that's about what they'd give you, more or less. Just a guessing. So the head dissipates rather quickly. It's not necessarily unusual for a barrel-aged product, though. So out of 3, I am going to give it a 2.5. And here's why. I believe it's certainly better than a 2, but I think 3 is perfect because you only can go up to 3. I don't feel it's a perfect pour, but it is nice. Gives you a nice kind of opaque black. I'm gonna say doesn't feel like a jet black to me. The aromas comment on malt, hops, esters, and other aromatics, and they give you a list of how to look at things here. They list acetaldehyde, alcoholic, astringent, I probably pronounced that first one wrong, diacetyl, DMS, dimethyl sulfide. Hey, someone asked me the other day, on another beer that I'm not going to mention, I said diacetyl. He said, do you mean DMS? I said, no, I meant diacetyl. I know what I meant. DMS, at low levels, a sweet, cooked, or caramel corn-like flavor aroma. Diacetyl is artificial butter, butterscotch, or toffee flavor. That's what I was getting in that particular beer. But there is a difference. It's subtle, but there's a difference between the two. Estery, you might get these fruity-like notes. Anyway, I'm not going to go over all of it, but let's just see what we got here. Work it around a little bit. It's a very interesting nose. This is a bourbon barrel aged stout. I believe it is 14% and change. I'll go over that later, but let me just do this. I'm getting dark malt chocolate notes. I'm also getting some licorice-like notes. Sometimes if you've watched me before, you'll hear me say anise or anise a lot. But here I'm getting actually the feel more of actual black licorice than the anise. It's a little sweet. You do get a tinge of alcohol, but again, not unusual for a 14% and change beer. Very nice aromas, actually. I'm going to write my notes down later because I don't really have a table set up. I'm just going to give it the score at the moment. Gives you a 10 out of 12. Again, I don't feel this is a perfect score of a 12, but the aromas are pleasing, especially for this style to me. I'm getting nothing off-putting, so I'm going to say 10 out of 12. As this warms, I may get more. But here's the issue. When they're grading beers, they are going rather quick. So that's why I just poured myself a little bit, and I'll drink more of the beer later. Flavor. Well, now we're going to take a drink, aren't we? Let's do this. The aromas are pleasing. I believe they're going to get more pleasing as it warms too. Oh, yeah, that's nice. So it starts out a little sweet. Like I mentioned on the nose, I'm feeling some malted dark chocolate notes. I do get a hint of the black licorice as well. I was getting something else, but I lost where I was going. Malted dark chocolate, certainly some licorice. Oh, molasses. There we go. A little tinge of molasses in there. That's what I was feeling. It dries up nicely. I'm going to get into my thoughts about other things I'm dying to say, but right now I'm just going to focus on this one. I don't really feel much of the oak until the finish, and that's where it helps dry everything out. So flavor gives you out of 20. Comment on malt, hops, fermentation characteristics, balance, finish, aftertaste, flavor characteristics. Like I said, I'll put notes down later. Right now I'm just more concerned with the score. But the flavors are nice. You do get some. Let me take another drink and all. At this point, over this much of the beer, I am getting some lingering sweetness. Again, kind of feels like molasses. You do feel some of that chocolate, but I am getting some oak that really helps clean it up a bit. So out of flavor, out of 20, 20 being perfect, I don't feel it's perfect. You do feel a little bit of alcohol, but again, that's not unusual for the style. And tasting alcohol isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's in how you taste it. Does it feel off? And it doesn't. I mean, you really ought to taste some alcohol. It's 14%, man. You know, you approach this beer more like you would approach a port wine. You'd kind of drink it the same way. You're not just knocking it down. You want to go slow. You want to enjoy it. So out of 20, Again, here's my issues with grading. You know what? I'm going to go over that later. Sometimes I just can't stop myself. My issue is, I got to say it now. My issue is that there aren't any standard deductions. So where I might think this beer is a 14, somebody else might think it's a 16. If I might think it's an 18, somebody else might think it's a 16, because we're taking off for you know, something I might take 1 point off for, they might take a half point. I wish there were standard deductions. But anyway, that's an argument for another day. Although this does taste pretty damn good, I must say. Went Ed Grimley on you. So, at this particular moment, I'm going to give it a 17 out of 20. Mouthfeel. Comment on body, carbonation, warmth, creaminess, astringency, and other sensations. Okay. Well, the body, I feel, is nice for this type of beer. I mean, again, it is a 14% and change Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels. So although it should probably be a heavily bodied beer, it doesn't feel too heavy, nor does it feel too syrupy. And I've had others in the past that did feel syrupy. But at this point, it does not over this amount of this particular beer. The texture is very pleasing. It really is. What else does it say? Astringency, other palate sensations. Yeah, I mean, again, you do feel some of that alcohol. It does warm a little bit, but not enough to make it off-putting. So out of 5, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Well, I don't have a proper table set up, so anyway, overall impression out of 10, it says, comment on overall drinking pleasure associated with entry. Suggestions for improvement. Suggestions for improvement. I love a bourbon barrel stout. It's one of my absolute favorite styles. The only thing I would personally like out of, or that I do like out of the style, I guess I should say, is I like to feel more oak. I like to feel more from the barrel. Although I didn't mention earlier, now that it's coming through here, it's warming up, I am getting a hint of vanilla. But there are some bourbon barrel stouts I've had, I get more oak, I get more vanilla, I get some of the char. I'm not getting as much of that. I'm getting a lot of the big imperial stout flavors. I'm not getting as much as of the bourbon barrel I would like. So having said all that overall impression, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. And now we're going to add this up. So my scoring, I'm giving it a 44 out of 50, which for them, a 44 out of 50 is excellent. 38 to 44 is excellent. Outstanding ranges from 45 to 50. So I'm just shy of outstanding. Example, stylistic accuracy. They give you 5 boxes. Let me show it to you so you know what I'm talking about. They give you 5 boxes. Classics example or not to style. Style accuracy. I'm going to hit the 4th to the classic example box. I don't feel it's a true classic example, but it's real damn close. Flawless. Again, technical merit, significant flaws. Now, I don't think there's any significant flaws. But having said that, I'm still going to X that middle box. Lifeless to wonderful. I didn't mention the carbonation earlier because I got to talk about other things. Yeah, it is lightly carbonated. Again, not unusual for the style. The bourbon barrel will tend to do this. So I'm going to tackle the 3rd box. So this is what I've marked out for it. I'll make more detailed notes later when I'm able to write. But anyway, so that's technically this is how I feel about this beer. So 44 over this much of the beer. Now I'm going to get into some of my personal feelings. Now that that portion of this program is over, and I've already talked for 12 minutes. The last time I had the Bourbon County Stout was in 2015. And again, I didn't stand in line for it. I had a friend hold one back for me that owns a liquor store, and I purchased it then. I did buy it. It wasn't given to me. And I really had a hard time with it. When I did a video over a small amount, like about here, and during the course of that video, I enjoyed it. But as I sat down to drink the rest of that beer, it became syrupy, it became cloying, it became very hard to drink. So I'm hoping this doesn't get there. But that's probably the problem with tastings that are judging beers, is that you only get that much of a beer when you're judging a beer, and you don't get an accurate example, in my particular opinion. So now I poured this glass the same time I poured that one. And it took me a few minutes to set up. So this is, now that I've talked for 13 minutes, this one's probably been sitting in the glass about 15 to 16, and it still has a chill on it. The head actually held up better in this glass than that glass. Not necessarily unusual. I don't typically drink stouts out of a snifter, but imperial stouts I do. Anything barrel-aged I think is beautiful in a snifter, my particular opinion. I used to drink a lot of Goose Island Bourbon County Stout before they were bought out. It was so easily accessible. I could go into a store, buy a 4-pack, and then the next year when a new one come out, I could buy that one and the previous year. It wasn't selling out like it is now. It was before the hype. So one thing you have to really give Budweiser props for is the fact that they know how to hype a beer, or AB InBev, I should say. Sorry while I scratch my nose. They are great at creating the hype, and that's what they did. And in my opinion, what they've done is they haven't necessarily got the true craft beer drinkers out. What they've done is they've got the posers that want their picture taken. So now that I've let this one sit a little bit, excuse me, I got to scratch my nose, just itching me crazy. So aromas. I mentioned aromas before, but I do feel it to be more aromatic out of this particular glass. And also it has sat for a little bit. So I'm getting the same malted dark chocolate, but it's much bigger. And it actually feels less sweet now than before. Before, I wasn't really feeling the oak on the nose, and now I am feeling some oak. I'm feeling more vanilla than I was initially as well. So my score actually at this point might even be more favorable than it was for that tasting. I still do feel that black licorice thing going on. Now that it has sat a little bit, it does feel a little bit more viscous. But again, to be fair to this beer, not in an off-putting way. And I actually, now that it's sat a little longer, maybe a lot of it's choice of glass, I am feeling that oak more. I really wasn't feeling the oak in my tasting. I wasn't feeling much of the oak until near the end. But I'm feeling it from the middle towards the end now. And my issue with that 2015 is that it just got cloying. It got overly sweet. Maybe I just didn't feel like it sat in that barrel long enough. There was something. It just wasn't doing it for me. Let me twist this around and kind of look at it here. I think it says... Well, I can't read that, darn it. I'm going to have to give away my studio here to show you my door while I picked the 14.7%. There you go. Now I'm back in the pub. Goose Island Bourbon County Brand Stout. This really is a classic. I don't think it was the first bourbon barrel stout, although it may have been. I don't know. It was one of the first that I had. I don't think it was the very first one I had either. I remember having this and the Odell's right about the same time. Odell's doesn't make theirs anymore, I believe. I do love bourbon. I love barrel-aged beers in particular, but I really love bourbon barrel beers. Mother's does a great product called MILF, usually comes out in February, that they age in typically 5 different spirit barrels that change from year to year. And then they blend them together. They don't take one batch and move it through 5 barrels. They age separately and then blend it together. I tell you what, though, I'm going to try to do, gosh, I've already talked for 17 minutes. I hate to keep going much further, but I'm going to go about 3 more minutes to see if this changes much more. And although I commented the carbonation felt light, it might have been, again, it could be the glass, because right now it doesn't feel, well, I mean, it feels lighter than some stuff, but it feels perfect for the style, is what I'm trying to say. And although I am getting some sweetness, again, I'm still feeling some of those molasses-like notes. I'm feeling it dry up much more. What I am getting, though, is some lingering dark chocolate-like bitterness. Like a semi-sweet morsel. Now I am just pulling stuff out my keister, huh? After having that 2015, I was really put off. I really was. I gotta say, I paid $15. It came with the 1 bottle this size, but they had it set in a 6-pack. They give you 1 of these and 5 other Goose Island beers, so that way I didn't figure it was too bad. I still, even though I am liking this particular vintage, the 2017, I still wouldn't pay $15 to $17 for it. I just wouldn't, and I saw it range, in that category. I think I saw one store had it for $19. It was $18.99. And there's no way. But again, at $11.99, sure. And part of me is wishing I have bought maybe 1 more just to age for next year. But I wanted to go ahead. I just bought the 2. One for my brewer friend. He's the head brewer at the brewery I work at, so I wanted him to try it. But there are those that want to raise this beer as if it is the very best bourbon barrel stout ever. And to be honest, even tasting this, even enjoying it as I am, I just don't see that to be true. This weekend I also purchased, at only 11%, I say only, the New Holland Dragon's Milk Bourbon Barrel Stout. Again, it is only 11%, but it was also $15 for a 4-pack. So I paid $15 for 48 ounces, where some stores were selling this for $15 for a 16-ounce bottle. So I think you have to put value in that equation somewhere. And so there's some that are going to say, well, I think the Goose Island's a better beer, Tom. That's fine. You can think it's a better beer, but you can't think it's a better quality beer. You can say you like the flavors of this one better than the Dragon's Milk. I'm not going to hold that against you, but you're not going to tell me it's a higher quality beer because I know it's not. So I don't know how you can justify that many more ounces, you know what I'm saying, for the same price. So having said all of that, yes, I do think this is a fine beer. Actually, I've talked a little bit more than that 3 minutes now. I wanted to give it a little more time to see if this is going to change anymore. Like I said, I did the video for the 2015, and it was fine. Then I sat down, and it just got more cloying and cloying. And by the time I got to that last little bit of the bottle, it became almost impossible to drink. I just struggled with it big time. But I'm thinking if this one was going to get that way, having been in a glass for about 30 minutes now, 35 minutes maybe, it would have already got there. And I'm actually, as it warms up, I'm actually feeling more of that oak in the finish, which keeps it from becoming cloying. I'm actually feeling more. During that tasting, I said I felt just a hint of vanilla. Here, as I've let this sit, I am tasting much more vanilla than I was before. I still get that black licorice is in there, though. The malted dark chocolate. You do feel some roasted barley notes that I may have failed to mention earlier. The bottom line is, in all honesty, I think it's a good beer. If I were to walk into that store again and they, for some miracle, had one left, would I pay $12 for it? Yes, I would. If I were to walk in another store and they had one left for $15 or $16, if that first store was out, no, I would not pay $15 or $16. Because I'm not saying that's not necessarily worth that price, but I'm saying there are other options that I think are a better value. So there you go. I'm Tom the Beer Whisperer. I drink beer and I say stuff. BeerVangelist, prolific beer drinker, Purveyor of Wisdom, man. It is nice. All around good guy. You all have a good one.